Let me ask you a question. Do you think you are smart? Probably. But are you smarter than the man who invented calculus, defined the laws of gravity, and decoded the universe? Are you smarter than Sir Isaac Newton? I hope so, because in 1720, this genius lost nearly everything. He lost the modern equivalent of $4 million chasing a hype train. He famously said, "I can calculate the motions of heavenly bodies, but not the madness of people." We like to think financial bubbles are a modern problem. We look at crypto, AI stocks, or NFTs, and we think, this time is different. It is never different. 300 years ago, a company called the South Sea Company promised endless riches. They had no product, they had no trade, they had no revenue, but they had the best marketing in the world, and they managed to bankrupt the entire British Empire. This is the story of how greed kills logic, and how the smartest man who ever lived proved to be the greatest fool in the market. Welcome to the South Sea Bubble.
To understand the bubble, you have to understand the desperation. In 1711, Great Britain was broke. Years of war with France had drained the treasury. The government owed millions. Sailors were unpaid. The debt was crushing the economy. Enter John Blunt, a scrivener, a hustler, and a financial genius with zero morals. He proposed a solution that sounded too good to be true. He would create a company to buy the government's debt. In exchange, the government granted his company a monopoly on all trade with the South Seas, South America. It sounded exotic. It sounded like endless gold, silver, and spices. There was just one tiny problem. Britain didn't own South America. Spain did, and Spain was Britain's enemy. The South Sea Company had no ships, they had no trade rights, they had no business. The monopoly was worthless. It was literally selling air. But John Blunt didn't care about trade. He wasn't building a shipping company. He was building a bank disguised as a trading company. His real product was stock. To make money, he just needed the stock price to go up. To keep the lie going, Blunt launched the biggest marketing campaign in history. He spread rumors of secret treaties with Spain. He claimed ships full of gold were already on their way. The newspapers printed whatever he paid them to print. But his masterstroke was corruption. He bribed the king's mistresses. He gave free stock to members of parliament. Suddenly, every powerful person in London had a vested interest in the bubble. If the stock went up, the government got rich. It worked. In January 1720, the stock was at £128. By March, it was £330. By May, it hit £550. The entire city of London stopped working and started trading. Even Sir Isaac Newton bought in early. Being a smart man, he rode the first wave up, made a handsome profit of £7,000, about $1 million today, and sold. He looked at the market and said, "This is irrational. I'm out." He was safe, he was rich, he was a genius. But then, he watched his friends get richer. And that is the most dangerous feeling in finance.
By the summer of 1720, the hysteria was uncontrollable. Seeing the success of the South Sea Company, hundreds of other bubble companies appeared. They promised to make salt from seawater, to import jackasses from Spain, or to build wheels of perpetual motion. One company famously issued a prospectus for a company for carrying on an undertaking of great advantage, but nobody to know what it is. The founder opened an office in the morning, collected £2,000 in cash, and emigrated to France by the afternoon. People didn't care. They just wanted to buy something.
Sir Isaac Newton watched from the sidelines. He had sold his shares months ago with a nice profit, but now the stock price was double what he sold it for. He watched his friends, people with half his IQ, buying country estates and new carriages. The psychological pressure was too much. The fear of missing out, or FOMO,
broke his legendary discipline. In late summer, with the stock nearing its peak of £1,000, Newton jumped back in. He didn't just invest his pocket money, he bet his entire fortune. He bought at the absolute top. For a few days, he felt like a genius again. But gravity works in finance just like it works in physics. What goes up must come down. In September 1720, the bubble burst. It started with a sell-off by the company's own directors. They knew the game was up. Rumors spread that the ships full of gold were empty. The hype evaporated instantly. The stock price free fell from £1,000 to £800, then £500, then £150. Panic in Exchange Alley was apocalyptic. There were no buyers, only sellers screaming into the void. The number of suicides skyrocketed. The Postmaster General took poison. Lords, ladies, and merchants were ruined overnight. And among them sat the smartest man in England. Isaac Newton lost £20,000. In today's money, that is roughly $4 million. It was almost everything he had. He was so traumatized that for the rest of his life, he forbade anyone from speaking the words South Sea in his presence. The man who conquered the laws of the universe could not conquer his own human nature.
The aftermath was brutal. John Blunt, the architect of the scheme, was stripped of his fortune and knighthood, but he escaped with his life. The British economy went into a recession that lasted for decades. Trust in the financial system was destroyed. As for Isaac Newton, he died a wealthy man thanks to his other investments, but he never recovered the fortune he lost to the South Sea. He spent his final years trying to calculate the chronology of the Bible, perhaps looking for logic in a world that had none. So what is the lesson? If the smartest man in history couldn't beat the market, what chance do we have? The lesson is that intelligence and emotional discipline are two different things. Newton failed because he followed the herd. He let envy dictate his decisions. He forgot that a company making zero money is eventually worth zero. But here is the scary part. The South Sea bubble wasn't the first, and it wasn't the last. Just 80 years earlier, the Dutch went crazy over tulips, and 200 years later, Charles Ponzi fooled America with postal coupons. It is the same story told over and over again. Greed, hype, crash. If you want to understand how a single flower cost the price of a house, you need to watch this video about tulip mania. Or if you want to see how one man built a pyramid scheme that fooled the mafia and the police, click here to watch the story of Charles Ponzi. The methods change, but the greed stays the same. Don't be like Newton. Learn from history. Thanks for watching.